So we're here in Bonn, in Germany, at the June meetings of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, in a very important year. It's the 10th anniversary of the Paris Climate Agreement, but also many people are looking forward to the next climate COP, as they're called, COP30, in Belém in Brazil. And at this moment, many governments are starting to put down their new revised national climate plans, known as NDCs. And we're going to see how the private sector, in a sense, and these NDCs can align better to get a better result, higher impact in terms of climate change and all the other things associated with that topic. So I'd like to introduce our wonderful guests. Could you say who you are and where you're from?
I'm Alexander. I'm an independent advisor and supporting the Exponential Roadmap Initiative with this important project.
Right, the Exponential Roadmap Initiative being a very important partner for We Don't Have Time TV and a long-standing partner. So that's great. Thank you. Our next wonderful guest, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Velloso and I am from IKEA Group.
Hi, I'm Tessa, Vincent, and I work for E3G, a policy think tank with the International Climate Councils Network.
So I'm going to ask Alexander first to actually set the scene for us. So over to you, Alexander.
Thank you so much. So you already brilliantly introduced the whole context here. So this year we see a real NDC moment. So countries have to resubmit. Hopefully all of them are going to do it in time. Well, not in time, but at least in time for COP30. Their new NDCs, their new ambitious, hopefully, targets. Now, the thing is, however, with just setting NDCs, same as with your own corporate targets, they're honestly meaningless if they're not followed through with an implementation plan, with action that stands behind it. So while we need ambitious NDCs, we also need something like following through on ambitious NDCs. And this is where this project here comes in, because the private sector plays a crucial role. Countries can only do so much to action or to take actually the NDCs to implementation, because they need the private sector to decarbonize, to scale up climate solutions at the same time. So we want to bring this focus on what can the private sector do to support, how can we create these win-win outcomes for the public and the private sector by scaling climate solutions, by making NDCs investable, and really leading from NDCs to a successful implementation. So we're building up these cases country by country and sector by sector with leading businesses and of course our ecosystem environment of partners who can help us to make a compelling case for countries to say, yes, here's an opportunity. We want to really build beyond this NDC moment.
Okay, very interesting indeed. IKEA has always been, I think, one of the companies that's in a sense somewhat of a poster child for action on sustainability generally and climate change in particular. You've got a new transition plan yourself as a company. How does this fit into this jigsaw puzzle?
So we look at our transition plans and we can identify each action that we need to reach 2030 and 2050. So the idea is that having this transition plan can help governments also looking at what are the key activities that companies are doing and needing, and maybe help strengthen and support them creating more ambitious NDCs.
Well, the International Climate Councils Network is a network of 25 expert bodies in different countries advising them on climate policy. So we've got members from Chile, from South Africa, New Zealand, where I'm from, the UK, and they've all been working really hard on providing expert advice to inform NDCs, national climate plans, to make sure that they're ambitious and that they're grounded in science. How does this interact with the private sector? Well, a number of our climate councils have actually been engaging the private sector in stakeholder engagement sessions, particularly in South Africa, so that these national climate plans aren't just empty documents. So while at Bonn, a lot of the focus is on let's get more countries to release NDCs by September. The UN Secretary General's office I met with today is really emphasizing September is the key moment. We also need to be thinking about how are they going to be implemented afterwards, and that's where the private sector, experts, civil society come in to actually implement these ambitious national plans.
I mean, we have some existing initiatives. We have things like science-based targets and there's B corporations, and I mean, there's a lot of initiatives out there. It's not like the world has been silent on that. So how would you say this might differ to what we've actually seen before, Alexander?
So the important piece here for us, for me, really is we need to create more synergies because, just as you said, it's a fragmented space out there of well-intentioned initiatives, of organizations, of projects that are loosely at best connected. So in our project, we are so lucky that we can work with people from E3G or the ICCN, with people from WBCSD. We just have been talking to World Economic Forum and other people. So really opening up this ecosystem and saying, this is a team sport. We need to do this. We only can do this all together. So how can we pull different actors together and make a really compelling, comprehensive offer? So it is not just about, to your point, you talked about the NDCs just becoming an empty, document or kind of targets without implementation, as I said. And for us, it's also not about just writing a report and saying, oh, we need to have these policy things fixed, and then nothing happens. It's having this ecosystem pulled together to not just say, here's a lag because, IKEA can't move on their own in this certain sector. If the value chain is not enabled through solutions, through policies in that space, putting this together, but then also following through with, and here's how we can all together achieve this through SBTI and others who might already be halfway in this. And we're inviting everyone from the B Corps onwards to really help us and make it even more compelling by having a united business voice coming in. And really it's not about teaching, educating them, the governments, it's about reaching a helping hand. And with a compelling offer.
It seems to me that in the past they always said, we need NDCs that are investable, that they are an investment plan as well, presumably talking about finance on one level, but also talking about the private sector too. And I wonder whether, that has been something of a gulf in some countries. I imagine within some countries, maybe some of the richer developed countries, some of the plans might have been more aligned, say, with what IKEA wanted, but maybe in some of the developing countries which you're also in, maybe they weren't. So just from your point of view, from IKEA, if a government has an ambitious target, it makes your life easier to raise your ambition? Is that the crucial thing here?
Well, yes, in a certain sense. When we look at sectorial NDCs, and when we go even down into the country level, is how we enable our suppliers to be able to transition. So if we're looking at renewable energy, we need to ensure that, first of all, the market has enough renewable energy. We can't set targets for our suppliers without them being able to achieve them. So I think that is where the role of the government come into place. Like if we can demonstrate that we have aggregated demand in certain areas, that will for sure enable, our suppliers to be able to achieve the target more easily. And that happens in all markets. I mean, we know that we need to triple renewables. We know that we need to work on energy efficiency, but, we need also the mechanisms to be able to do so.
Tessa, I wanted to ask you, so you've been working, or your organization has been working with others to assist certain countries with their NDCs, correct? And to set hopefully higher targets. Do you feel that the ones you've been working with understand this relationship with the private sector, that they have incorporated this kind of relationship into the ambition that they put down for the NDCs they've either put down now or you're waiting for them to put them down?
It's a really good question, and I think it differs country by country. As I mentioned before, the South African Presidential Climate Commission has been deliberately engaging the private sector to ensure that their roadmap to reduce emissions and adapt to climate change is implemented by the private sector. Our group are experts, so sometimes there's a business expert on a council, for example, Nigel Topping in the UK Climate Change Committee. So the voice of business is sometimes incorporated, but at the same time, our council members are experts, and they're scientists, they're economists, so we need to make sure that there is enough rigor, and that perhaps negative lobbying from certain trade associations doesn't dilute their their evidence-based advice as well. So it's a difficult balance that they have, both engaging but also making sure that it's embedded in science and that NDCs are ambitious and scientific as well.
I suppose it's true to say that the Paris Agreement itself would not have happened if there hadn't been a lot of companies at the level of CEOs in many cases who came to Paris and gave the governments cover to make the decisions they needed to make to bring together a universal agreement of nations. And it does seem that sometimes in private sector, sometimes they're quite vocal and, you know, really stand up for what they believe in. And then when there's some ill winds blowing across continents, maybe from certain places, they tend to go into their burrows and hide a little bit and see what's going to happen next. But what you might be outlining here, if you can pull it off, is a way of actually embedding the private sector into the ambitions of nations in a way that means they can stand up and say, I'm sorry, but you're not doing what we wanted you to do. You need to raise your game. It might be a way of locking in the private sector, and I mean that in a positive way, to push governments harder in a more formal way. Is that possibly one outcome?
I feel like we're often in the climate space, we're trapped in this typical like prisoner's dilemma. Like we would all be better off if we could agree to collaborate more and to all put a step forward. So policy makers might be hesitant because they feel they might be lacking the backing from businesses to be more ambitious. But if they get now signals from big companies like IKEA, like Unilever, who are part of this project, who are saying, no, we're here to invest also, we want to go there. You just have to give us the right enabling policy. With more ambitious policies then that are all backed in science or backed by science as well, would really, really get this flywheel into motion to create, as you said, like not only locking them in, that sounds a bit negative.
Yeah, I didn't mean it to be negative. Locking in, it's more English is locking in, I suppose.
No, but it is creating these yes, we want to do this, these optimism of we can do this actually together, through the alignment, and we need to send the right signal in this project saying we are ready, like the private sector, civil society, we are here and we support you. We need to do this as a team sport, as we already said.
And I suppose from the point of view of a company like IKEA, which has ambitious targets and in this case a new transition plan, if countries don't actually recognize what you need to achieve that, there is a possibility you could go to another country not so far away from that country that have plans that support what you need. So actually the governments have an interest in listening to what you need as well, right? I think that might be an important point.
For sure, we will in the future look for the enabling conditions to be able to scale and continue to grow. So I think that there is an opportunity, a business opportunity also into, like matching the NDCs with companies' transition plans.
No, just to echo Alex's point that I think when you have the business community alongside experts, alongside civil society groups, kind of knocking on government's door to say, yes, we're ready to implement ambitious NDCs, that those are the ingredients we need, and hopefully we'll get there out of Bonn, but let's see.
Good. Well, thank you everybody for being here. It was short, but it was sweet. And I think that illuminated a new initiative in a sense that's going on in the world. And we wish you all the best of luck on this work.